Previously on Keeping You Organized.
I will often ask someone, what made you call me?
Right.
And usually the first word is, I'm overwhelmed.
Like any relationship that you develop with a person, that up front we're always on our best behavior.
I need help in my business, or I need help setting up files, I need help with learning how to use my iPhone, or I need help with residential, whatever it is.
Yes, John, that's absolutely true.
Part 2 of our discussion on how to choose a professional organizer, today on Keeping You Organized. Today on Keeping You Organized, we are going to continue our discussion we had from our last episode on how to choose a professional organizer. And with us today, we have a phenomenal panel of professional organizers. Louise Kurzika from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, Mary Dykstra from the Michigan area, and also Tammy Schatzko, right? I'm working on the name.
You got it.
But she's in northern Minnesota, the Bemidji area. Yep. So last time when we were on the show, we talked a little bit about NAPO, which is the National Association of Professional Organizers. Mary, the current president of NAPO, and we talked a little bit about how NAPO works. And on this, we're going to get more into the how do you hire a professional organizer, because that's a lot of people try to do it themselves and then finally get to a point. Maybe Tammy, you can kind of just get into the mind of that person. What are they probably thinking when they finally given up on the idea that they can do it themselves, and maybe some of the first questions they ask you?
I think I still live in a rural area where there's a real need for education, because most of them think that it's like the TV show. Mm-hmm. And the first question is usually, what can I buy? What do you need me to buy? And I'd say don't buy anything until after our first or second time, when we decide what you're actually going to keep. Mm-hmm. It's not about what you have, it's about what you want to keep around you. And the second question, or inference, they don't always say it out loud, but is, are you going to make me throw all my stuff away? Are you going to tell me to get rid of everything? But that gives me the opportunity to have the conversation that a professional organizer is not there to make the decisions for you. Right. We're there to kind of guide you and ask you the hard questions and let you make the decisions about why are you keeping this or why are you not keeping this. Right. Kind of a prioritizing system. Okay.
Well, Mary, I'm thinking that from a national perspective too, and probably even a local in your area, there's a lot of psychology that goes on. How much counseling do professional organizers need to do? Like Tammy said, people are thinking right away, I'm going to have to get rid of everything. Do you kind of overcome that objection right away? Because say, hey, listen, I'm not going to tell you to do that. Or how do you deal with, because people are probably suspicious, right? They maybe don't know you very well, and they think you're going to be one of these neatniks that's going to come in and pull everything away. How do you deal with that on a psychological level?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to be human. You have to be approachable. And you have to be with them in the conversation that they want to have. One of the things, when somebody just asks me on the street, what do you do? And I tell them, and I say, well, I'm a professional organizer. And they say, oh, what's that? And I said, tell me what you think that might mean. And so then they'll reflect back to me, so then I can clear that very quickly and set the expectation. And I think all good organizers do this, but I don't think that they'll articulate it the same way. Our passion and our ability is to help our client take a step back, take a breather, and then we help them set up really good decision-making criteria in 4 key areas. What are you going to let into your life? Whether it's in your schedule or your physical space, where is it going to go? How do you know when you're done with it? And what's the exit strategy? Because if you fail in any of those areas, then you get into overwhelm. And so many of the times when the clients come, they don't even know where to start. So it's having that conversation about, first and foremost, we're going to talk about where you are now, where you want to go, and what's keeping you up at night. After we do that, we can talk about prioritizing. I don't even need to look at your physical space until I know where you are mentally and emotionally. That's where you have the conversation. And I say to people right up front that it's not about making you throw things away. It's about having those things around you that are important and that you have passion around or that you need for the government, and that they are always in the driver's seat, but I'm there to help do the stepping stone from position to position. Some organizers do just consultations, and then the client does all the work, and then sometimes you have clients and organizers partnering side by side, and then you've got that transference of skills. And then you've got the third set where an organizer will come in, do an assessment, find out really what needs to be done, but then the organizer does all of the work and then brings the client back into the situation.
Have you ever had a situation where maybe on the initial call or even in the initial meeting you've decided, you know what, this is not a good match for me? I mean, do you ever turn business down because it's not a good match?
If you are good in your languaging skills, the client will self-select and say thank you, and they won't call back.
How about you, Louise? Have you been in that situation before?
Yeah, I think like any relationship that you develop with a person, that up front we're always on our best behavior, and sometimes down the road things can happen. I always try to remember that our clients often are under a great deal of stress for one reason or another. I don't take it personally, but if there are times when I have to set a boundary for myself, then I'll do that. And sometimes the client has set that boundary, has had the need to. That as we've gotten into working together, they didn't feel it was the right fit. And so again, as a professional, you know that that's just what happens sometimes in business. And I've often encouraged people to look at other people that I think could be a good fit when that isn't the case. But you have to do that in order for the client to be successful, because that's what the outcome is here that we're looking for. It's not just to continue to work with somebody and make money. That isn't the goal.
Now, is there a question you wish a new person would ask you? I mean, and you probably answer it before they ask it, but I mean, what are some of those questions?
Maybe the question would be, can I work with anybody? Because in the beginning you really can't work with anybody, because there are people that we service, and now I'm in my 22nd year in this field. It was many years into my career before I began to work with people who had needs beyond the typical person with disorganization. So that might be for a neurological, biological reason, like attention deficit disorder, or because they were suffering from depression or anxiety, or even what we hear now a lot about with hoarding. You need to be trained to deal with those kinds of populations. And a sister organization that we are affiliated with, the ICD, which is the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, does a great deal of education, and much of what I learned through that particular organization. So again, if you're new, you want to make sure that you're working with the right people. And I think Tammy can really speak to that new experience, because when she was just starting her business, what I loved is she contacted some of us in Minnesota chapter and said, I'm going to the conference. I'm going to the yearly conference. Is anybody going? Can we meet up? Can we talk? And I thought, how great that here she, as a new person, is taking it on herself to invest time and money, a significant amount of time and money, to go get educated and learn, so that she would know who to work with. She'd know the answer to that.
Talk about that, Tammy. How was that first conference, and how did that NAPO support system come into play?
It cemented my experience as an organizer. I just remember walking into there, and after my first day thinking, oh my gosh, I am surrounded by, I think it was like 800 people at that conference. That might be the wrong number. I am surrounded by 800 people that think like I think, and it's normal for all of us, because a lot of times people will say, I don't get how you do this, because I do sometimes deal with hoarding and chronic disorganization, but I love doing it. I love it. And to have people around there. And the other thing that I got out of that conference, besides the fabulous education pieces, was that we do all think differently, and different organizers approach the same story different ways. So if this approach isn't working, then there's other organizers or other ideas or other ways to go about things, and none of them are wrong. They're just different. And I think that was a huge eye-opener for me personally, to realize there isn't just one right way to do anything.
Well, we are going to take a quick break right now, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about questions that someone should ask you when they're looking for a new professional organizer. We'll be right back.
Looking to get your home organized but don't know where to start? The newest ebook from Smead will help you with room-by-room organizing tips given by the top professional organizers in the nation. Download your free copy now at smead.com/room. That's smead.com/ROOM. Smead, keeping you organized.
We are back now on Keeping You Organized, and before the break we teased the fact that we're going to talk a little bit more about questions that you'd ask a professional organizer. Perhaps you've been thinking about doing it but never have. And Mary, I'm going to start with you on this one. If someone is looking for a professional organizer, now we talked before about the idea of the NAPO site, but what if they're local? What if someone is in your Michigan area, Grand Rapids, and do they still do the Google search, or is there someone they can ask? How would you recommend someone goes to look for a professional organizer in your area?
Well, I think that there's always, you can go online and just search for professional organizing, and then there'll be different sites that come up. But then you can get into, if you go to the NAPO site, then there is the directory, and you can get that right down into your local area. And as professional organizers within NAPO, there are, I think, 30 or 40 different specific subject matters that we work with. And so you can say, I want somebody who can help me with closets. I want somebody who can help me with this, that, or the other thing. So then those organizers that have listed that as a proficiency, that will come up within that search, so then you can connect with them directly.
Now, Louise, you've been in business a long time, so I know the answer to this question before I ask it. Which is, it's a lot of referral stuff, right?
Reading my
mind. Now I'm asking you the question and answering it here.
Yeah.
But for maybe someone who's a professional organizer doesn't have as many years of experience, how do you market your business? How do you get the word out?
Well, interestingly, while there is a zip code search function at the national site, we in Minnesota at napominnesota.com also have a local zip code search. So it kind of narrows things down, and that's one of our key ways to market, because we know people are looking for somebody who has the kind of credentials that you do as a NAPO member and as a longtime organizer in the area. Then they're able to look at that and see if there's a good fit. And we have something we call an enhanced listing, where you can not just list your business material, but you get to list a little bit more about what your services are like and some things that will help people be educated. But you're absolutely right. More of my business comes now at this point in time through referral than anybody else. So because I do work with people who sometimes are receiving services through the mental health community, I market to therapists and let them be aware that I have skills to work with their patients that might be challenged by disorganization in certain areas. I also speak to a variety of different groups, and that's a great way to be able to do it. And of course, John, I've got a little video experience of my own.
You are a media mogul. You're on TV stations all over. I
do in the Minneapolis-St. Paul market for more than 20 years. I've been a regular fixture on a variety of different channels and programs, sharing organizing ideas. Because to me, I'll tell you that if you can distill it down to one or two simple steps of just one change that a person can make in their life, that can make all the difference. So I try to present real simple, practical, actionable kinds of tips and ideas on those segments, on those programs, so that people can say, I can do that idea. They may not be able to tackle the whole filing system, but they might be able to figure out that having a basket for mail that's right next to the door, so when they get the mail, they can toss it in there until they have time to look at it after the kids are in bed, or maybe in the next morning when they're off to school, that they can do. And that can make a change in their life that helps them feel more in control and do the things that they want to do.
So how about I'll ask you the same question I asked Louise about a new person. What questions should they ask an organizer? I mean, you might have some of the typical ones, how long have you been in business, and those things. Do you have references? But what do you think they really need to know that they don't think they know, or something like that?
Well, I was trying to think when you asked Louise what that would be, and I know the question that they ask me a lot is, how long is this going to take? And I always say it's like going to your doctor and saying, well, how long is it going to take me to lose 10 pounds? Well, that depends on your activity level, what you eat, your metabolism. I can't walk into a place and predict until I've worked with you and we've gone through some stuff, how long it's going to take you to get rid of. And I think perhaps the expectation level, if they've been accumulating for 10 years, we can't walk in there and take care of it in a week. I don't care how hard we work. We can do it if that's what they want, but if they want to actually have a transference of skill where they want to learn the process and they want to move forward using those skills, you can't clear out 10 years in a week. Right. You have to have time. You have to embrace kind of the process.
Yeah, I think, Mary, can I ask you the same question about what new people should ask an organizer when they're looking for one, or maybe what they should look for? I mean, we talked about Googling, we talked about background checks, the NAPO site. What else?
Well, it was interesting because when I started my business, and I actually came from a marketing background a long time ago, I put on my website all the questions you should ask before you hire an organizer.
Oh.
Nice.
Because that's something where somebody new can go to, and it's working with an organizer is a very intimate experience. It is, because you get to see everybody's shame, the pain, and the things that they have not felt competent to do. You understand and find out things because they've shared and they've been okay with sharing when they're in that safe space that their spouses don't know, their families don't know, their bosses don't know, their peers don't know, and sometimes their children don't know. So it is a sacred place that you want to make sure you got the right people through that door. And so I said, before you even let them through the door, ask some questions. Yes, how long have you been in business? What kinds of clients have you worked with in the past? What makes you different from the other organizers? I want them to be able to articulate to me what the difference is, whether it's, well, I'm a CPO, I've had years of experience. I do ask for references. I say, please ask people. I've always got a list of clients that have been very happy with my services, so that they can connect with them and understand if I might be a good fit or not. We have a conversation because I said, when you talk to another organizer, and if you hire somebody else, great, but these are the kinds of things you should be hearing from another organizer about how you think. And if you're not hearing that, then you might not have the right fit for an organizer. So there are some key things that it's just like if you're going to hire a financial planner and you were going to give them all of your money, what kinds of questions would you ask to make sure that they were a real professional and that they had a good reputation, that they had people that they had worked with for a long time. And there are new organizers through the door all the time. It's okay as long as you know where they're coming from, you're paying accordingly, and you partner together, not a problem. But if you've got a client who's been struggling for a long time and they don't think just like everybody else does, they're going to want an organizer who's got a lot more experience, as Tammy said, who, if position A isn't going to work, then let's talk about either B, C, D, or E, depending on how somebody's mentally and emotionally and physically wired. And an experienced person can help you with that. Okay. The one thing I wanted to say too quickly was, all organizers are not built the same, and some organizers are extremely minimalists, and they're very good. They've always been good in their life about making decisions. Everything is always just so. And then there are other organizers that, you say, well, how would you feel comfortable with an organizer coming in your house? Raise your hands. Like, no, not so much. Because what happens is that we as organizers, for the most part, have our own woulda, shoulda, coulda piles, because we're very good at working with others. But when we get into our own spaces, that's the stuff where we emotionally have to deal with all those things. And it's not very easy for us to deal with our own things. So when you run into that, it's nice to know that you can reflect back and have the empathy for the client to say, I understand your pain. No, I'm not perfect, and that's why we partner with us together. And many times you're more successful with your clients when you can share a story about when you had to go through something. And one for myself is that I just got married for the first time 18 months ago, and we both had established homes, and my husband had a larger home and some furniture that he absolutely loved, and I wanted the man more than the stuff. So I walked away from 80% of my things. Was that okay? Yes, it was. I made the good choice. Was it painful? Yes. I had to go through all the things that I loved in my life and that I had collected over the years to say, what has value now? So when I have a client who says, I don't know what to get rid of and this is really painful and I've liked this for a long time, I can say, I get that. And this is how I dealt with it. What do you think? How does that feel? Oh, well, that's much better. So just keeping those things in mind help, I think, the conversation.
Wow. I got one more question for her I'm going to throw out to you, for each of you to answer here, which is, think about maybe a client you've worked with recently and how, what were they thinking right before they called you? What was the trigger point for them? And you don't have to use their name or anything, but maybe you can describe their situation. But what was the thing that made them call, right before they called you? Tammy, I'll start with you.
Of course you're going to start with me.
But she could have 10 answers because, it's a variety.
I like to say you can always make something up.
Oh, no. I like to call that the tipping point.
Yes.
And I will often ask someone, what made you call me?
Right.
And usually the first word is, I'm overwhelmed. The most recent one I had was the upcoming graduation and just the whole hullabaloo that goes with that. And it's very stressful for people.
So stress was the motivator there. Louise, how about?
Well, and it's interesting because it comes off of the fact that we did a podcast on downsizing.
Yes.
So I tend to work now with a number of people who are in that situation. And it was a couple who called because they did the physical downsize, but they still have too much. So in the spaces that they're living in, they needed some help and some adjustment and a different eye on, one, how they could use the space more effectively, and two, what things might be able to be let go of that don't really serve a function anymore that did in their previous home. And they liked it, just like Mary, they really liked it, but it really doesn't fit with what is happening here. So if your goal is to make this a more manageable space to live in, then that would be the focus to be able to look at.
Right. Mary?
Well, I get a number of calls, and I think that events certainly. So I'm not having people over my home or the office because it's a mess. I've got clients making decisions about using my services, or my family is distressed. So graduations, weddings, whatever. Anything where they need to open up the home and they don't know how to do it by themselves in terms of getting things organized. And I'm sure that you guys get calls too with my husband, my wife, my mother needs to be organized. I would like to give them a gift certificate. So then that's a whole other thing, because then you have to have a conversation around, is it an appropriate gift? Will they be open to it?
Exactly.
And then you have to get the buy-in. So, I'm sure that all three of us deal with that in a different format, and that might be in a whole other conversation.
Right.
But
yes.
Actually, John, and that brings up one point when you had mentioned to Tammy, you don't have to tell us your name.
Right.
None of us will tell you what our clients' names
Yes.
are,
Yeah.
because we have a pledge of confidentiality
Yeah.
that all, and again, that would be one of those things that you want to look for, is does the organizer tell you that up front with their marketing materials, their website, or in the conversation you have with them, that what we learn about you, what we know about you, your identity, we keep confidential to our business. And if I say to people, if I meet you out in public, I will acknowledge you. And if I need to introduce you, I will say, well, this is a friend of a friend, or this is someone I met through a friend, and never identify who they are, because to that shame and guilt and those deep emotional barriers that people have to getting help, we don't want to in any way come up against that in a negative tone. So we want to make sure people know that confidentiality is probably like the hallmark for all of us, and that's part of that ethical approach.
But sometimes we have clients too that say, "This is my organizer. I'm so excited. I want you to meet them. Come.
Yeah.
So,
and as long as they do that, as long
if
as
they're
they
okay, we're okay with that.
Yeah, we're all right. But,
We're not uptight. We're not an uptight group.
So John, you're safe.
Oh, good.
From any future
I know
engagement
nothing.
we might have with your desk later today.
What are you trying to say to me, Louise? Okay. Well, guys, it's been great having you here in the last two episodes, really, this one and the one before. And for those who haven't seen the first or listened to the first episode, we encourage you to go to smead.com/podcast and look that up, because this is really a two-part program, and we've covered a lot of material. So before we go, I want to give you each an opportunity to promote your business, give your website, any contact information, and Louise, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So Louise Krzyzika, my business is Everything's Together, and I like to say my tagline is organization you can live with. You can reach me at 952-939-8080, or email me louise@everythingstogether.com.
Great.
And follow me on Facebook too.
Oh, yes, we definitely do that.
Yeah.
Mary, how about you?
Mary Dykstra, Within Reach Organizing Services, and my website is withinreach.biz, B-I-Z. My phone number is 616-453-2976, and I have a passion for what I do and getting my clients empowered for the long term.
Awesome. And do you do virtual
I do.
services as well?
And I speak nationally. As a matter of fact, I went to Japan this past December and spoke there.
Awesome.
So
Great.
it's nice.
And Tammy, how do people get a hold of you?
I'm Tammy Schatzko with We Love Messes. My tagline is "Let us organize yours." You can find me on the web at welovemesses.com. You can call me at 218-766-0197. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Google+.
Great. And for those of you who missed that, we're going to have all that in our show notes. Thanks again for being on. It's been a great couple episodes.
Thank you.
All right. That's it. We've shown you how to choose a professional organizer today on Keeping You Organized. Coming up next time on Keeping You Organized.
In any of these areas we're going to talk about, we're not looking at perfection. We're looking at what's reasonable. So things to think about are that there's variations in what organized looks and feels like for each of us in those areas. So just be aware of that.